Welcome to the Online Trainer Show, where we help fitness and nutrition pros take better care of their clients and build profitable businesses. I'm Jonathan Goodman, and as always, I'm joined by Amber Reynolds. We're happy you're here. Let's start the show. Hey, Jonathan Goodman here. Today we've got a special episode for you where my friend Sam Pogue is going to be on, talking to Amber Reynolds. Sam is the best networker I have ever met in the fitness industry. He's somebody who I've gotten to know a lot over the years. He's somebody I've spent a lot of time with, clinked a lot of beers with, and I am just so happy to let you learn from him. You know, he does this relationship building thing the right way and doesn't make enemies, doesn't look weird, and he's got a lot of there's a lot of personality stuff, but he's got a lot of really tactful ways that he does it as well. So excited to hear from him. I hope that you are too.
All right, you guys, we have an extra special guest today. Usually when we bring somebody in, you guys kind of know them already, and you should know Sam. But if you don't, we have Sam Pogue with us today, who is like the master of building relationships without being freaking weird, guys. So thanks for coming on, Sam. We're so excited to have you.
Thank you so much. It's an honor to be able to come and share and hopefully impact some people's lives.
Fantastic. So I think we can just dive right in. So we talk to students, we've worked with thousands of students at this point, and we talk about the importance of how building relationships impacts their business. And when they kind of get in the mindset of, I'm trying to build a business, and they just push a little bit too hard and I think overthink it. So any thoughts, suggestions, anecdotes, anything that you could give our students to help build relationships without being weird about it?
Yeah, first and foremost, thank you. Super pumped just to share and just, so you guys know, I come from starting my career at 24-Hour Fitness as a membership sales person, right? Only to eventually come back and become a personal trainer and come through that route of one-on-one personal training from the outside world, right? In that external world. And that game is purely predicated on your ability to network, not just for your own professional matters, but to expose yourself to enough people to give yourself the opportunity to reach the right clientele. Right? Something you guys have talked about in OTA is finding that right clientele and not spending time working on the other people that don't serve who you're trying to reach, right? Exactly. And so you really want to dig into who is it that you're really good at communicating with. If I don't know Star Trek really well, and I'm someone that like in my other thing that I am, that's not just Sam and fitness, is like I'm a Trekkie, let's just say. And I go to, Comic-Con, I have nothing to engage with. I have nothing to try to, if I'm targeting Trekkies, let's just say, I don't know why I use this example, but it's not like I can walk up I know this example and this story and this thing, and this is how we can relate. And that's so key in our ability to connect and not only drive sales, but also drive our career networking. And so, Amber, let's say you and I are sitting at the pub having a beer, which I hope that we get to do someday. Yeah. And we're sitting there, and all of a sudden we're yucking it up, and in walks this person, and you know them. And you're just like, what a D-bag. I can't stand them. Oh, my gosh. Blah, blah, blah. There's everything that's awful about this human is, awful. And then all of a sudden they take their jacket off, and then they sit down at their table, and they have a shirt that's from, your childhood dance studio or your college or your high school or something that you have in common, strong ties to. And you just go from holy crap, you're from PS 157 in New York? I went to PS 157 in New York. How old are you? Friend. Oh my God, we were right. You guys all know who I'm talking about, right? That person that just went from I want to punch you in the face to you're now singing melodies at the pub taking shots. Right? Why? Because you had something in common with that person. The relationship wasn't predicated on this falsified interaction. It was predicated on, I found something in common with you. No. And so whether it's your clientele or your career, something I really want y'all to focus in on is anchoring into what you have to offer from a conversation standpoint, from a value standpoint, right? If you're trying to get yourself in other rooms and introduce yourself to people that you respect or people that you want to learn from or just people that you want to know. You have to find something that gets you in the vicinity, right? Mm-hmm. And maybe, because we already have training on top of it, right? But like, you're not going to go up to Dr. John Russin, let's just say, and say, well, hey, doc, how do you feel about the acetabulum and its interaction of the hip during hip flexion on axial loaded movements like a barbell back squat? Right? Like, he'd be like, wait, what? Hold on. And I think there's this idea that, sure, people eat, breathe, and love their passion, their craft, but that's not all who we are.
Thank you.
As individuals. And so while I love talking shop and yucking it up about training and programming and movement, whatever, more often than not, it's finding what else there is to know about the other person. So you guys are in OTA. I met John Goodman at a Mark Fisher retreat in Mexico. And it was a non-fitness event. Like, it wasn't like speakers. It was just a bunch of people who worked in fitness coming to hang out. And there was a big group that went out, and the group I was kind of mostly palling around with. And as I was like walking around, I saw John sitting there by himself, just hanging out. And I was like, oh man, I really want to get to know this guy. Right? So just went down and sat down and started chatting it up. And what we found that we had in common is that we both grew up loving the Seattle Mariners and Ken Griffey Jr. And
you're a baseball fan,
right?
Oh, I knew I was going to
totally.
Like,
oh,
man.
Super baseball fan.
Okay.
And you know, oh, and you guys know John. John's a big like send a gift to someone. Okay. And I'm sure, I don't know this for sure, at least on my podcast, she's told this, but like, John talks about, one of his goals as being a trainer early and financially was to be able to afford to buy the Ken Griffey Jr. rookie card. Right? I don't know if you guys have ever heard this story. And so it was a thing, like, you wanted to make enough to be able to buy this card, because at the time when we were kids, it was like the pinnacle card, right? And so then as he got successful, he never did it. Well, because him and I bonded around Griffey and bullshit, and we talked nothing about training. We talked nothing about OTA community. We talked nothing about his books. We bullshit about baseball and childhood, right? And like a little bit of our stories about how we got into where we are. But, then he sends me a starting lineup action figure of a Ken Griffey Jr. Dude, right? And I was like, okay, I see the game this dude's playing. So I bought him and sent him the Upper Deck, right? Ken Griffey Jr. rookie card. And it was like, so now we have this anchored thing in our relationship that has nothing to do with training, right? Like, not that John comes from fitness, but like, he's not called it. Like, it's not the game that we have where I'm like, oh, what do you think about this, this, and this? Right? Our friendship and our relationship is based entirely on that. Right? And so I think understanding that you have these other anchors to reach people are so much stronger. And when we root down to what we do as coaches, our game is really in behavior change. It really has nothing to do with mechanical stress, progressive overload, the conjugate system, circuit-based training, ladders, blah, blah, blah. It has everything to do with meeting people with where they're at. You should know the science, right? I hope that coach understands why they are choosing a single rack squat with a kettlebell versus a goblet squat versus a barbell back squat, and how those mechanical differences are more advantageous for that person to be able to train harder in a better range of motion. But to be able to explain it so that way that person understands that they need 4 more degrees of external rotation in the shoulder, right? Like, that's not what it's about. They should be able to visually identify and see stress, but the game for them needs to be, how do I get this lesson, this understanding of movement, so Grandma Betty or whoever I'm working with in front of me can understand it, right? What is it? Not DiCaprio. Jeez. Da Vinci has a great thing with, right?
You can put
like
it on the
thing,
internet. It can be
so
DiCaprio.
simple.
It's okay.
It can be DiCaprio for sure. Tag me, Leo. If you can't explain it to a child, you don't know it.
Like I'm
you
5.
can't make it simple enough, right? And so, that really, to bring it all back together, when you're able to take someone and let's say they are an accountant or a construction worker or whatever they are, as coaches, you work with a large population of different types of people. While they all might be men that were athletes between the ages of 35 and 45, and that's kind of your, economical demographic, right? They're dads, they're sedentary, they haven't worked out. Like, those markers that you're really talking to. Well, then if you take it another layer deeper, right? If you're able to connect and say, okay, I need you to understand this lesson around why strength training is important, and you're an accountant, you don't really care about exercise science, right? And you're wondering why we're not doing some of the latest things that you see on Instagram. And so then my game needs to be, how can I put the thing that I understand in a way that you understand? Right. So if I'm just going to use an accountant example, right? Like they understand compounding interest as a growth strategy, right? So I would be talking to them like, okay, we'd be going over their total daily energy expenditure and talking about their RMR and their non-exercise activity thermogenesis and their exercise, and talking about how the game of exercise is really about building muscle, which increases your RMR, right? And that acts as like a compounder. So it's not that the burning of calories and the going getting your ass handed to you in a workout is valuable. It is. But the value of strength training or training is to be able to build muscle, which inevitably is the anti-aging component, right? And hypertrophy is the opposite of sarcopenia, or, and muscle loss, right? So the game would be, how do I connect to that person, right? And how do I make it so that way they can understand it in my terminology? Recently, I just moved from Boulder, Colorado, where I used to work for True Coach and oversaw their brand strategy, to doing this self-employed thing. And I moved back home into my parents' house. And I'm out in Kelso, Washington, out by Mount St. Helens. We live, out in the woods, and we don't have Wi-Fi, right? Like I run on a cell phone all the time. And, during COVID in the beginning, right, I'm just working out in my garage, right? Because there's no gyms open in town, right? Kind of thing. And so my dad watches me work out, and he's like trying to understand what it is. Well, my dad doesn't understand strength training, right? He's not going to understand, right, conjugate system, or I'm using this type of loading parameter, this Russian, blah, blah, blah. But it becomes like, oh, he also knows how to build things like carpentry, right? So he understands tension, stress, levers, right? Because I grew up doing woodworking with him, right? So I'm looking at it going, okay, if we were to build a shelving system, right, for a bookshelf, and I want to improve the ability to improve how much weight a shelf can sustain, well, I don't need to just, instead of putting a new piece of wood or improving the supports, I can build that with certain exercises, right? And then essentially exercises is just simple physics, right? It comes down to levers and pivot points, right? Like, should that be pivoting there or not, right? And if it's pivoting there, right, and it's not supposed to, then everything has a capacity at which it's going to be able to pivot before it breaks, right? And so giving him, and I'm not a scientist by any means. I don't come into fitness from being an exercise science major. I come into being a business major, and so, but like growing up doing woodworking, I can give it to him in terms he's going to understand, right? So I'm like, oh, when I'm doing my overhead pressing, right, I'm building a bit more stable environment so that way I can push a weight further from my center, right? And then being able to help them understand, well, 35 pounds holding it and moving in space when it's close to my center of gravity is a very different experience than if I hold 35 pounds away from my center of gravity and try to move, right? And so he understands those terminology, right? And so I can now give it to him where he can understand what I'm trying to do in a way that he can partake in the conversation that also doesn't make him feel stupid for not knowing. And that's the one thing that trainers really do a bad job of doing, is they talk down to their clients in the way that, like, how the F don't you know this? What, right? Isn't this common sense? And it's getting better now because there's enough people coming into the industry that don't come from fitness. And so it's their second career. They were accountants, they were nurses, they were whatever. And so you're going to have a little bit better bedside manner as opposed to more of a black and white, right? Scientific lens, right? It's either A or B, right? And so that becomes, and so you look at right? I'll give you guys the example. In our world, we have two big audiences. We have the education audience, the people with master's degrees, PhDs. They work in collegiate NFL pro settings. And then you have the industry side, the personal trainers, the weekend cert people, right? I'm a weekend cert person, right? I've now been able to earn the opportunity to teach workshops all over the world, the NSCA, Eric Cressy's, Exos, and it has nothing to do with how many muscles I can name. It has everything to do with how am I presenting this information so that way the athletes or the coaches that I'm working with are better at communicating this skill. Because getting the opportunity to work with professional athletes at a high level, right? They don't care about the acetabulum or the thoracic extension. They care, does this help me throw my baseball better?
Nope.
Right? Like, and do I like you?
Huge.
That is it. That's why half these dudes and women and people work out with their...
You did so good.
I'm trying to be so good about the pronoun thing. Thank you. In that, like, they work out with their brothers, sisters, cousins as their trainer. Because here's the thing, when you work with professional athletes and everybody knows how much money you make, people out to get you. So it's easy to want to work with someone who's probably not out to get you. Just to throw that out there. Anyway, connecting and being able to network, and once again, is all about having those anchors of things to connect with, right? And so that's from a business development of going out and getting clientele. But it spews over into if I'm at an event. If I am, I really love this coach's methodologies. I would love to learn more. How do I understand what they're doing? Or I've been doing their course. I've been taking their information in, and I have some questions. How do I go about getting those questions addressed? Right? And you see that happen. You know, obviously right now is a different scenario, but in the world of live events and having access to people, and honestly, the world of social media creates a barrier, has taken down the barrier that makes everybody accessible. And so whether that person chooses to reply or not, the opportunity to reach out or have that person available is very real, right? And that's what social media has done. And so now, you know, you're all amped up. I'm building up. I'm going to ask Jon a question. Ready to go.
So excited.
I'm building it up. And then you ask him, and then just nothing happens. And you're like, what happened? Oh my gosh, he's, you know, what an asshole. He didn't even respond to my question. I thought this guy must not want my money. And to be honest, it probably just wasn't a good question. And I hate to say it so rudely. But it's true, right? Like, more often than not, it'll get replied to if it's worth replying to. And here's the thing about people who have a lot of content out there. The answer's out there. It's already been put out there, right? I'm a big baseball fan. My childhood dream job was to work in Major League Baseball in some capacity. And so as I worked through fitness and had the opportunity to earn the right to work inside of Major League Baseball and fitness, right? It was like, holy crap, I really need to learn more. And it's like, oh, Eric Cressy is the dude, right? And so it's like, I need to learn more from Eric. How do I learn more from Eric, right? And the first thing is like, sure. And I watch it. He's really good about doing Q&As, right? I'm just going to keep using Eric as an example. And every Sunday he does a Q&A, ask me a question. And every Sunday it's the same 9 questions. What do you think about this? What about this? What about this? Is it this? And it's all, not that they're bad questions, they're just not thoughtful questions. And the game that we need to get good at is asking better questions. And we do that by becoming more informed. The beautiful thing about the internet is there's plenty of information at our fingertips, right? So someone like Jon, who's got a ton of content out there, or Eric, who also has a ton of content out there, Pete Dupuis also has a ton of content out there, Mark Fisher. If you want their attention and you have a question for them, the first question I would have to you is, how many times have you read through every piece of content that they have, that they've already put out there?
Yep.
Right? Because it's already there. I promise they've already answered it. And it doesn't mean they don't want to help you. But I would say, okay, hey, Eric, I read this article about UCLs and coming back, and I still don't quite understand how to introduce loading parameters into single arm horizontal pressing patterns. Can you help me understand the best way to introduce that for my athlete coming out of this scenario? Right? And putting him in a scenario that he can be successful. I'm giving him all the specifics. As opposed to, hey, what do you think about you coming back, you bench press for guys off a UCL tear? I don't know, maybe. Depends. Probably not, but it would be irresponsible to say that's the only thing, right? But that's when you see most of the questions, that's how they're phrased, right? And obviously Instagram is not the most appropriate place to ask a very in-depth question, right? But that's, you know, for most people, that's going to be how you're going to be able to network with people and get access to them. Because I tell you what, if you're a fan of someone's work and you're engaging with their content, right? go through and help be a moderator to an extent, right? Like, don't overstep your bounds, but like, hey, consistently, give them props, right? Help share, encourage, right? Like, get their attention by engaging, right?
That's how I got my job at OTA. I was in the Facebook group and just helping anywhere I could, plugged articles that I knew would be helpful. And that's how Jon saw my name so much. And that's how I ended up getting my first job with OTA.
Yeah, that's perfect. That's a perfect example. And,
Yep.
It's unfortunate because now with the internet, people kind of seem to have this attitude like, okay, I'm here and now I deserve my thing. And it's like, maybe, kind of, I don't know. And so in the example I'll give you is oftentimes if you're young in your career, and I was definitely this person young in my career, was you ask the senior level people, hey, what can I do to help you? And that person's like, nothing, I don't know. And it's not because they don't need help. And it's not because they're not open to help from you. It's that they don't know what you do and they don't know how that you can help them. And so the word I'm going to use is turnkey. To be able to have a turnkey solution to offer someone as to how you can help them solve their problem.
Yep.
Right? And if you're like, oh, I'm a hyper OCD organized person. And the person that you really like their content, they're just like, the one thing you don't like is they're just not an organized person. And it's like, hey, I'm guessing, you offer the opportunity. Hey, I know you're probably super busy. I'm a really organized person. I love to be able to organize and catalog and structure things. I would love just to learn more from you. Could I help you organize your content? Can I help you do this, this, and this? I'm really good at this. I'm a videographer. I'm a this. Here's a skill I have. Here's how I'd like to offer to help you. And I'm only asking for the potential of opportunity to learn in that engagement of time and experience. And having something to offer when you start going out to network in your profession is the name of the game. And I say that not because you have to be able to pay to play. You do, right? Pay to support people's stuff, buy their stuff. Don't ask for free, right?
Yep.
But have something you can offer them to help them, right? And and that could be as simple as like, hey, can I buy you a coffee, right? Yep. To hey, I would love if you're seeing someone at a conference, to be able to approach them and say, hey, I just want to let you know I've really appreciated the work that you've done. Cite something specific that's not, oh man, you write great articles, right? Like, give them a specific example that's like how it's really impacted you, and then be able to say, hey, if there's ever an opportunity where I can add value to you here, I would love that. Here's my contact information, or I'll send you a message, or I'll send you an email, right? But thank you so much, right? Like, it's just super genuine and having no expectations of anything happening past that. But more often than not, you have to realize that like someone who's doing really well in their career and doing really well clearly in that light has got things kind of going on doing well, right? Like, it's not that they don't want to stop and support. It's that the broaching of it was wrong. What's that?
They have limited resources.
Limited time. You're 100% correct. And so changing it to where you can put yourself in a scenario that changes that for them, where they don't have to, I don't have to figure out something for you to do. I know, oh, you're really good you're a videographer. Oh, you want to help me edit my podcast just because you like my stuff and you want to learn more? Oh, okay. Please. Yeah. Like, how do you turn down a volunteer or right, that like solves your pain point in the utmost degree? So, being able to understand that, you might have a skill set that someone really needs, but to understand that just because you're a videographer doesn't mean that OTA is looking for videographer help, right? Like, just being like, hey, I do videos. Hey, you should help. You should use me. You should use me. I'm the best. You should use me is like, what? You know what I mean? So being able to tether in and find these interactions. And that's why I said earlier in the beginning that finding something in common is going to be a much easier way to integrate yourself in with people than selling just the thing that you do, right? Because everybody's guarded against getting sold. Like no one wants to get sold things, right? And so as soon as you're like, hey, it becomes very Eddie Haskell plus a used car salesman.
It feels gross. It just feels bad.
Right. It feels great. And that's the thing that most coaches really hate. And unfortunately, coaching has such a high attrition rate because to be a great coach, you have to be great at sales, either digitally or in person. And unfortunately, to get enough reps to become a really great coach, you got to sell enough sessions to get those reps. And so if you're going to do it, like, are you going to spend your time hanging out with a bunch of people who do underwater basket weaving when that's not what you do? Or are you going to spend it talking to a bunch of people who enjoy soccer or football or whatever, and put yourself in scenarios to where you've taken away that barrier to entry of conversation, right? You're already there. So back when I was a trainer at 24 Hour Fitness, right, there was 35 other trainers in the gym that I was at. And sure, we were in an affluent area that had the economics to support personal training on a regular basis, especially at like 9, 10, 11 a.m., right? Or 2, 3 in the afternoon, right? People work out in the midday. But to be able to, okay, well, if the new people coming into the gym are getting hawked down by the new trainers, or in that environment, it's like the new trainers get fed a few clients, right? Then it's not going to necessarily behoove me to sit and pound a saturated market. Unless they see me for something different than the group, right? If you just see me as a collective in the group, now you see something very different, right? But I tell you what, if you're in that in-person gym experience, like a big box gym, the power of smiling and saying hi to someone every day will blow your mind away how much business it brings you.
It's that simple relatability and friendliness. That's what people need. It's what they connect with. So before anything else happens, being able to connect on a human, non-weird level comes first.
Yeah. And earn the next conversation, right? It starts off by, hey, good morning. I hope you're having a great day, and just smile. And because here's the thing, if you guys have been doing personal training or in that world at all at this point right now in your careers, you know that in that one-on-one in-person environment, them showing up is the best part of their day more often than not, right? They're going through a divorce, their job sucks, they're there, and sure, they're 10 minutes late, but they're just like, oh my God, I'm here just to like hang out and let it out. And so online, you don't necessarily get that as much depending on your business model, but you have to create that experience digitally to make that person feel like it, whether it's in your Facebook group, through your email list, in your content, in some whatever engagement you do with them as a product. You have to make them feel like they're a part of this collected kin. And that collected kin is who you are, is what you're a part of, right? And so if we are in this game of having something to offer, right? Having something to offer doesn't need to be a physical good, right? I got to play a very unique game when I worked at Onnit because I got to be able to send product everywhere, right? When I left Portland to move to Austin, Texas, I did it to get out of the fitness industry. And the only reason why I got to Onnit was because I was a fan of Joe DeFranco. As a coach growing up in my career, he had just serendipitously moved his gym from Jersey to Austin. I had just said I was moving to Austin. I was like, holy crap, this is pretty cool. I was the very first member of the Onnit gym when it opened up in 2014, came on board to work there, oversaw strategic partnerships, but coming on board to start playing in that game of networking and connecting, right? Well, sure, in the beginning, I'm Sam and I don't know anybody. So I have to, in order for me to get your attention, I got to send you, I got to put myself in front of you, right? So the Eric Cressy example was like, social media, they just, blew out another med ball. Hey, can I send you guys a bunch of our med balls? Yeah, all right, here you go. Great. Hey, I'm going to send some clubs and some of the other Masons too, if that's cool. Yeah, okay, cool, right? And then I'm, I put myself in Boston. Hey, would it be okay if I came out and shadowed and just, shook hands and met you? Yeah, and that's a big thing they do. And came out, just met and greet. And then the next time I come out, he invites me to share a workshop with his team, right? And then I get to come out again later and, take part in his mentorship. And it was, okay, every single time you're earning the next time to interact. And you have to give value, right? So it's like, first it was super easy, like, sure, they're not my med balls. I work for someone that put me in a position to do it. But like, Okay, let's get me in the door. But then, oh, you have an event, let me sponsor it. How can I help? How can I support? What can I do to help, right? Use the resources I have at my disposal to help improve where you are. And for a lot of you, that's just going to be your time and energy. And it might just come from through super authentic interaction by always engaging in their content. Because here's the thing, if, as you know, as coaches, putting out and doing your thing, a couple of nice comments can make your day. Because it's the bad ones that ruin the fucking day and it make you not want to be in this shit, because social media is a terrible world half the time. So to be able to think about like, oh man, to let the person know that they're truly making an impact in your career.
I think it's so important. The point is, you can't just expect something to happen one and done. Like, I've done this nice thing and now I deserve something in return. That is not how it works. It's an investment over and over and over again. And maybe something happens, but it doesn't mean it will, and you shouldn't expect it.
For sure. Absolutely. Right. And that's the game right there. Right. Is not expecting things. Right. Because if you truly gave a shit about their work and what they were doing and you're supporting them just because you support them, you don't care if you get an Instagram pic. You don't care if you get to talk to them at the event. You hope to. Yep. But if you're just there to collect the letters behind your name or get the Instagram pic to show people that I was at this cert, well then F, right? Like, you don't deserve that relationship. Would you want to be friends with you?
Yeah.
Right? So think about that. Think about all your friends when you guys became trainers. They're like, hey bro, like, you want to like write me a program? And then like you're trying to get your business going, so you do it. And you're like, hey man, I'm just trying to get my wheels under me and trying to write some programs. You want to help me out? Yeah. And then like, okay, now I'm going to be charging money. Ooh, yeah, peace. And you're like, okay, right? You find out who your friends are if they keep choosing to pay you, right? Exactly. And because they respect the work that you do. And it's not that your friends don't respect you, but like, they don't understand the value that you put in. They don't understand the value of the education. And I get that's why people want to put the pictures and show the people and who they're with and yada, 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 right? But if you truly want someone's attention because they truly add value to your life, right? Have something to offer them. Reach out. Engage with them. Earn a conversation with them, right? If you guys don't know who Raj Law used to work for Mark Fisher Fitness, and he actually was also an intern at Cressy Performance. Raj grew up in Michigan and had lost some weight himself and was interested in getting into fitness and did the precision nutrition cert, I believe it was, and then was coaching group classes at YMCA and was trying to learn more about how to get into fitness and found Cressy Sports Performance internship. Well, shit, if this is the place, I should go learn how to do that. Ooh, I'm not a baseball person. Oh, applications are due this day. This fool drove from Detroit-ish to Boston to hand in a resume for a 6-month unpaid internship. He does not have a master's degree in exercise physiology, does not have an athletic training certification or physical therapy, which are the other interns that work there. But of the 600 interns that applied for Cressy internship that summer, do you think Raj got one because that dude had the gumption to drive his ass out there and shake hands? You bet his ass he did. Cressy Performance wasn't the future of his career. But all of a sudden it becomes, you know who you're a great fit for is this place called Mark Fisher Fitness in New York, right? Yeah. So off he goes, right? And you're like, well, and that's the other side of networking is, sure, that person may not be the person that impacts your life, but they might know someone that truly will. And that is the true ability of being a good networker. Because being a good networker is getting to the point where people are willing to share their network with you. Without question. Right? Happy to like, oh yeah, you need to talk to Sam. Oh, you need to talk to Sam. Oh, you need to talk to Sam. That's it. Because you've earned the opportunity to have them blindly do it. Hey, you should just hit him up. Right? Because you've added so much value. They can't see how they don't want to introduce you in that scenario. How do they not want to help you out? Because you've given so much value to them.
I think that's probably a really great point for us to circle back and kind of regroup everything that we've done. Because what's really interesting about everything you've kind of shared is it applies to in-person or online. So although We haven't said specifically in this situation or specifically in that situation. The philosophy of everything that you've shared is true, is to make sure that you find a commonality with people. Be interesting and be interested in others. We talk about that with our students all the time. We talk about the 1% uniqueness factor. So when students submit for us to give feedback, if you tell us, okay, well, I'm unique because I really care about my clients, sure. But the fact that, you overcame smoking addiction after 30 years, like that's a way more interesting point to talk about and to connect with than the fact that you care about your clients. Because that's just kind of a bare minimum. Like that's the expectation. That's not anything else. And then showing value repeatedly without expectation. So I think that applies in person or online. It could be something as simple as sending them an article that you think would be helpful for something that that they're working on. Those little, thoughtful gestures make, people's day. So
buy them a book. If there's a book that you think they'd like and you're a fan of it and they're a reader, send them the book.
Not that hard.
Engage.
Yep. So just try not to overthink it, because I think that's where everybody kind of goes wrong. Don't go into conversations, whether in the DMs or in person, with the intent to get something out of it. Be selfless in your interactions and try to connect. So I think that wraps up the bird's eye view of everything you said. Did I miss anything, you think?
Last point I would just say is come prepared. Right? Like the game in the world right now, there's so much content out there. So chances are the person that you're trying to earn a conversation with has enough content out there. And sure, maybe you read it once, maybe you've skimmed through it, maybe you like it, maybe you like every post, but learn everything you can. Right? And when you ask them a question, or when you finally get that opportunity, right? Make it something like, holy crap, no one's ever asked me a question like that before. Right? Listen to a podcast called Hot Ones on YouTube. And it's this guy where they have 10 chicken wings and progressively go from like not spicy to super spicy. And you watch these celebrities just fall off the wagon. Well, these celebrities are great interviewers, right? They're also actors who are trained at giving responses. And so when you get this super self-aware actor to like, they're just off their rails because this food's so spicy. But then you ask them like, holy crap, dude, how did you learn that? Like only my brother knew that. Right. And you get these people who get asked questions constantly that are just the same question. Right. And it's like the worst questions. Right. Like I love watching the Olympics when a girl gets done and maybe she didn't do well in the gymnastics, and like reporters like, you just failed for your country. How do you feel? And she's just like, right. And you're just like, can you ask better questions? Right. Than just like the most pointed, obvious ones. Right. And so, right. And that's the game. Ask great questions that truly grab someone and engage them. Like, holy crap, I want your attention. I want to give you my attention.
I love it. That's a great way to end. Sam, thank you so much. Hopefully we'll get to bring you back on for more stuff. To our listeners, please make sure that you review and subscribe, and then also go check out Sam. He has a lot of super interesting stuff. Obviously, sampogue.com. Anywhere else where they should connect with you, that would be a good place.
Instagram's probably the best place where I'm at most often, and that's just SPOGUE86. And you'll probably be able to interact with me most easily in that environment.
Perfect. Well, thanks again so much, and we will catch you guys later.
Thanks, y'all. Have a great day.